Students, today we will discuss the proteins. First, introduction of proteins. Protein, that is derived from Greek word protos. Protos mean first or supreme. Proteins are extremely complicated and nitrogenous molecules made up of variable numbers of amino acids residue joined to each other by a specific covalent bond called peptide bond. And for synthesis of proteins, 20 amino acids which have been found to occur in all proteins are known as standard amino acid. In nature, there are more than 300 amino acids, but out of 300 amino acids, only 20 amino acids are known as standard amino acids because they are used in synthesis of proteins. Remaining are non-standards. Amino acids mean compound that contain amino group and acid group, that is the amino acids. Like ornithine, citrulline, they are non-standard. They are amino acids but they are non-standard because they are not used in synthesis of proteins. Only 20 amino acids are standard because they are used in synthesis of proteins. So proteins are most abundant biological macromolecules occurring in all cells. Proteins are polymers of amino acids covalently linked by peptide bonds. Building blocks of proteins are 20 naturally occurring amino acids. Thus, proteins are polymers of amino acids. They do most of work in cells and are required for structure, function and regulation of bodies, tissue and organs. It is also the most versatile organic molecules of living system. It's occur in great variety, thousands of different kinds ranging in size from relatively small peptides to large polypeptides or polymers and then proteins. Animal sources of proteins are meat, poultry, fish, egg and dairy products, while plant-based protein sources are grains, beans, vegetables and nuts, often lack one or more of essential amino acids. Amino acids are monomer units of proteins, or proteins are polymer of amino acids. Amino acids, as the name indicate, amino means it is the NH2 group, that is the amino group. Acid group, that is the COOH, carboxylic acid. So amino acid is the compound that contain the amino group and the acid group. These amino acids are joined together by name of bond, that is called peptide bond. Peptide bond is the bond between the carboxyl group and the amino group. It is the peptide bond, and two amino acids are joined together by name of bond, that is called peptide bond, and during the synthesis of peptide bond there is removal of one water molecule. Then classification of proteins on the basis of structural complexity. Proteins are classified into four types: primary structure, secondary structure, tertiary structure, and quaternary structure. So classification of proteins on the basis of structural complexity: primary, secondary, tertiary, and then quaternary structure. Primary structure of proteins that contain only peptide bond, and primary structure of protein, it is the amino acid sequence. Secondary structure of proteins that contain hydrogen bond in addition to peptide bond. Hydrogen bond is the bond between the oxygen and nitrogen. It is the hydrogen bond. Hydrogen and electronegative, that is the hydrogen bond. Then on the basis of nature of hydrogen bond, secondary structure are of two types. One is the alpha helix structure that contain hydrogen bond between the same chain or intramolecular hydrogen bond. Second, beta pleated sheet structure that contain hydrogen bond between the same chain and the different chain. Beta pleated sheet. This structure, it contains the hydrogen bond between the same chain and different chain, that is the beta pleated sheet. Alpha means it was discovered first, beta means it was discovered later. Then tertiary structure of protein. Tertiary structure of protein is like amino acid sequence. It is the three-dimensional structure. It contains all the bonds that are present in the proteins: peptide bond, hydrogen bond, disulfide bond, hydrophobic interaction, ionic interaction. All the bonds are present, and all these bonds are present in the single chain in the tertiary structure. Quaternary structure, it is the three-dimensional structure. It is the protein-protein interaction. Example like hemoglobin, that is the 4 chain protein in the hemoglobin. These 4 chains are joined together by all the bonds: peptide bond, hydrogen bond, disulfide bond, hydrophobic interaction, ionic interaction, and all these bonds are present in the same chain and different chain. So tertiary structure, that is like alpha helix structure, and quaternary structure, that is like beta pleated sheet like structure. So classification of the proteins on the basis of structural complexity: 4 types: primary structure, secondary structure, tertiary structure, and quaternary structure. Then classification of protein on the basis of axial ratio. On the basis of axial ratio means ratio of length to width. So on the basis of axial ratio, or that is ratio of length to width, these are of 2 types. First, globular protein. Second is the fibrous protein. Globular protein which have axial ratio less than 10, but not below 3 to 4. These are compactly packed, folded, and coiled. Example: insulin, plasma albumin, globulin enzyme. Second, fibrous protein, axial ratio that is greater than 10, spiral or helical or cross linked by disulfide and hydrogen bonds. Example: keratin, myosin, elastin, and collagen. Then classification based on chemical nature, structure, shape, and solubility: simple proteins, conjugate proteins, or derived proteins. Simple proteins means composed of only amino acid residue, or on hydrolysis these protein yield only amino acid. Example: keratin, elastin, collagen, albumin. Second, conjugate proteins. Conjugate mean they are combined with non-protein part: nucleoprotein, nucleic acid plus protein; phosphoprotein, phosphoric acid plus protein; lipoprotein, lipid plus protein; metalloprotein, metallic acid plus protein. They are they contain non-protein part in addition to protein part. Third is the derived protein. Derived is the hydrolysis or degraded product of simple or conjugate proteins. Example: proteins, metaproteins, coagulated proteins. Then function of proteins. Proteins are vital for growth and repairs, and their function are endless. They have enormous diversity of biological function and are most important final products of information pathway. Proteins, which are composed of amino acids, serve in many roles in the body. Example: enzyme, structural component, hormones, and antibodies. They act as structural component such as keratin of hairs, nails, collagen of bones. Proteins are molecular instrument through which genetic information is expressed. DNA to RNA, RNA to protein. They execute their activities in transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide by hemoglobin and special enzyme in the red cells. Protein function in homeostatic control of volume of circulating blood and that of interstitial fluid through the plasma. Proteins are involved in blood clotting through thrombin and fibrinogen and other proteins factor. Proteins also act as defense against infection by means of protein antibodies which fight against antigen. Protein perform hereditary transmission by nucleoproteins of cell nucleus. Ovalbumin, glutenin are storage proteins. Actin, myosin acts as contractile protein important for muscle contraction. So we have discussed about the proteins. Thank you.